Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Summer 2022 Investor Conference. My name is Adam Lowensteiner, Vice President of Lytham Partners. During this fireside chat, we welcome Reliq Health Technologies, ticker symbol of RHT, that is Robert Harry Thomas on the Toronto Venture Exchange, and RQHTF, that is Robert Quebec Harry Thomas Frank in the United States. And we're welcome also its CEO, Lisa Crossley. Before we begin, those who are not familiar, Lytham Partners is one of the country's leading investor relations firms with more than 2 decades of corporate access experience. We have built one of the industry's most diverse and effective platforms for connecting small cap companies with high quality and focused institutional investors while creating a framework of best practices in all aspects of investor relations. Today's discussion is hopefully yet another example where we can bring value to multiple constituents. We will dive into the discussion in a moment, but one final item, I want to remind everyone that Reliq is available for one-on-one meetings later this week. If you have not already signed up, please send me an email at lowensteiner@lythampartners.com or visit www.lythampartners.com/virtual and click the one-on-one meeting request button. With that said, let's begin. Hi, Lisa, welcome. Why don't we start again with providing you a brief overview of the company and your background.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for having us. So my name is Lisa Crossley. I'm the CEO at Reliq Health. Reliq is a global telemedicine, telehealth, digital health technology company. And we are focused primarily on the chronic disease patient management market in the United States. We have a target market there of about 57 million patients who qualify for the services that clinicians can deliver through our platform. And our platform is really built to provide benefits to all of the stakeholders in the healthcare community, from patients who have better health outcomes, and from physicians who generate new sources of revenue by using our platform to access programs, and payers who save a significant amount of money by keeping those super users, the chronic disease patients, out of hospital by providing this more proactive, preventative approach. And my background is the 4th company that I've run as CEO. I started my career in the States in Boston in a biopharmaceutical company, and I've since run 4 companies, all really at the intersection of healthcare and technology.
Great. What are some of the key accomplishments Reliq has achieved so far in 2022 that you're proud of and are important to share with investors?
Yeah, we're proud of the fact that we are growing despite living through a global pandemic, which is a real challenge for any healthcare company. And we've grown consistently over the last several quarters. And we expect the second half of this year to be much more significant growth now that we're past things like the Omicron resurgence at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, which certainly impacted healthcare businesses. And we've signed some large new contracts this year with Datasoft Logic, who ultimately will add 500,000 patients to our platform. And we partnered with Cognizant, who's a multi-billion-dollar multinational Fortune 500 company. And they both support us on the care management front, and we work together to address new potential clients and their needs. And I think, one of the things that we're just happiest about is that we continue to sign new contracts and continue to onboard patients at an accelerated rate. So by the end of this year, we should be at about 100,000 patients at our target margins of 75% gross and 45% EBITDA. And we don't anticipate needing to do any kind of a capital raise to reach those milestones.
So initially, the company's been providing hardware for patients. Can you walk us through how this came about and why over time software revenues will become a majority of revenues?
Sure. So we went into the pandemic, we actually had quite a few devices in inventory and that we had originally purchased to help our clients in the Texas market who were having trouble accessing devices. During the pandemic, sort of 2020, half of 2021, we sold hardware to essentially any client who needed hardware, whether or not they were going to sign up for software and services from us going forward. Beginning July 2021, we stopped selling hardware unless the client was also signing on for an ongoing software and services subscription with us. So now hardware sales are a really good leading indicator of future software recurring recurrent revenue. At the moment, we have a different approach to hardware. So I'd always said that I wanted to get out of the hardware game, tying up working capital and having a lot of inventory. But we've been able to work with financing companies so that we have a just-in-time approach now, where if a client wants hardware, and a lot of clients do seem to want to purchase hardware through us, we can sell that to the client on a 12 or 24-month payment program, and we pay the financing, the device financing company when we get paid by the client. So we don't have to maintain inventory. We don't have to have a lot of working capital tied up in inventory, but we are able to provide that device, which is really essentially provisioning and providing that hardware is a service that we're delivering to our clients. And when we provide devices on a 12 to 24-month payment plan, we charge a significant premium. So we're actually making very comparable margins to what we're getting in our software side of our business on the hardware side. But it's also a key competitive differentiator for us that we are able to supply clients with devices. So hardware will continue to be part of our business. To date, it's certainly been the majority of our sales, but by the end of this year, we expect that about 80% of our revenue will come from software and services, which are recurring revenue streams, and only about 20% will come from hardware.
Also, can you walk us through the hardware sales process? What transpires, and why do you feel confident this will be a source of cash flow for Reliq?
Essentially, clients request hardware. They say, we want to get a whole bunch of our patients onto this platform, and only some subset of them already have devices, or we want to supplement the data that they're able to collect with, say, their glucometer with other devices like a Bluetooth or cellular-enabled scale, a blood pressure cuff, a pulse oximeter to check your blood oxygenation, a spirometer that a COPD patient would blow into. So whatever the clinician wants to use, they're essentially prescribing that device to that patient. And then, we will do the procurement, and those devices will be shipped generally directly to patients as opposed to their clinician, and then distributed from there. And obviously, we charge the hardware fee for that, but we also are getting those patients set up onto the platform so that within a few months, we're also charging the recurring revenue from software and services.
So COVID has definitely turned the economy as well as the healthcare system on its head. I know you've mentioned Reliq's trials with that as well. What are you now seeing in the healthcare system, and how does Reliq remedy some of the pressures on the healthcare system?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of points there to sort of unpack. During COVID, there were companies like, say, Teladoc and other telemedicine companies that not unique to them, who really did very well in the capital markets because of the pandemic and the perception that they enabled, as they do, virtual care and virtual visits. But a lot of the funding that was available during the pandemic for companies like that, for example, Trump had put in place a waiver where essentially anyone could receive a virtual visit, but that's a temporary program. So post-pandemic, we've seen a lot of those telemedicine companies really drop in valuation. And, there's sort of two buckets in the healthcare space in terms of the types of companies with respect to the pandemic. So there are those that benefited from, the market dynamics during the pandemic. And then there's those like Reliq who really benefit from the pandemic being kind of largely behind us. So, whereas for a lot of the telemedicine companies, there are much lower incentives for clinicians to use their services now. People do want to go in and actually see their doctor in person. And a lot of the billing codes are coming down such that a doctor will make more money seeing the patient in person than through that basic telemedicine. And over that same time period, Medicare and Medicaid have really dramatically increased the amount of funding available for virtual care that's proactive and preventative, which is what we enable with Reliq's iUGO care platform. So funding has increased substantially since we started in 2018. It's gone up over 600%. And clinicians can do very well on a revenue front from deploying our platform. And we've demonstrated, and Medicare and Medicaid have demonstrated for themselves, that there's a significant ROI on any investment in our kind of preventative, proactive virtual care. We can reduce hospitalizations by 80%. That can reduce healthcare costs for an individual patient by 90%. And we're talking about millions of dollars per physician practice that can be saved by implementing our programs. So we are seeing steadily increasing demand. as we come out of the pandemic, or at least out of the acute phase. And I expect that will continue indefinitely. Medicare and Medicaid just continue to expand the scope of their programs, as well as expanding the reimbursement levels. And we certainly have seen with the pandemic and, sort of post-pandemic, even though we're more sort of pandemic/endemic at this point, but that hospitals are really overrun still. So they're very backed up. They haven't been able to do elective surgeries for years. And so there's a lot of catch up that has to happen. And so hospitals are really putting pressure on community physician practices and home health agencies to keep those chronic disease patients who are traditionally the super users of the system out of hospital, keep them at home so that they can start to work through their backlog. And that backlog is estimated to take between 3 and 5 years to clear. And that's assuming no more COVID surges. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure in the healthcare system to keep these chronic disease super users out of the ICU by deploying and implementing platforms like iUGO Care that really help with those patients managing their conditions in the home and keeping them at a baseline level of health that doesn't involve frequent hospitalizations.
Are you the only player offering, these types of services? What's the competitive landscape like, and how does Reliq differentiate itself?
Yeah. So we're the only player that really set out to design a comprehensive, holistic program for the community care space. A lot of what's been done historically in healthcare has been aimed at hospitals or the acute care space. And companies that have come along in the community care space have a tendency to have sort of niche offerings. So they might monitor patients with congestive heart failure or cardiac arrhythmias or COPD, but they don't have the capacity to monitor patients with really any condition. And so they don't offer clinicians sort of a one-stop shop where they can come in, they can have essentially a very large percentage of their patient population covered through our platform. So whether their patients have arthritis or cancer or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, congestive heart failure, asthma, mental health or addiction issues, they can all be serviced through our platform and they can access the associated billing codes. And we also have now at this point over 4 years of data showing that we really do improve health outcomes, reduce hospitalizations, and that we provide a significant ROI to the physician practice. And so we can show them the past 4 years of data with Medicare and Medicaid billings from our existing clients, showing that they are consistently getting reimbursed. We also offer, upfront, we'll do pre-screening of their patient population through the Medicare and Medicaid databases, and we'll secure electronic pre-authorization. So they know that the patients that we put on our platform on their behalf are eligible to receive these services, and therefore they will get reimbursed when they provide these services to these patients. And then we provide the electronic claims submission, and we can even go a step further and do care management. So acting as an extension of the physician's office, our qualified care managers can call patients, can review care plans, and can update patient charts. All of these are billable activities that we can provide to the physician practice at a fee, but they're getting a significantly larger reimbursement as a result. And there really isn't another company out there that does that. And because we kind of started early at a point where we were very much missionaries in 2018, when the market was very much in its infancy and people didn't really, understand the codes, and there were a lot of bumps in the road for companies at that point. A lot of companies that had sort of started out in the space got out of it, and we kind of toughed it out and stuck it in there. And as a result, we do have this 4 years of data that's really valuable when you're looking at selling to clients, particularly the larger clients, where they can see there's clinical efficacy and there's documented proof of reimbursement through the payers.
Can you discuss the new markets that you're developing for the iUGO platform? I mean, I know you've put out several press releases on this. There's several that you've announced, CRO and clinical trials, hospice, and others. How should investors look at each new vertical that gets added, and how large can each become?
Yeah, I think, it's in general, every time we enter a new vertical, it expands our total addressable market. So that's always a positive. It also really diversifies us. So, if someone tomorrow developed a magic pill that cured COPD. We still have millions and millions of patients with other indications that we can support through the platform. And clinical trials in particular is a very interesting market segment for us. We enable the clinical trial sponsor to monitor medication compliance for the patients who are participating in the trial, as well as to collect data on a daily basis that's physiological and patient self-reported. So if they have any symptoms or side effects, adverse events, and that kind of systematic, rigorous data collection where, we are ensuring medication compliance. We're not doing what a typical clinical trial does, where a patient comes in every 2 weeks and, shows you their empty pill bottle, and that's the only proof you have that they took it. We're monitoring that on a daily basis with automated medication dispensers. So the data that you're presenting to the FDA as a clinical trial sponsor is much stronger, and you're much more likely to get a quick processing of your application for approval. And clinical trials, there's an organization called clinicaltrials.org or .net, and they've been quoted as saying that it costs pharmaceutical companies anywhere from $800,000 to several million a day for every day they're in the clinic versus out in the market commercially approved. So there's a lot of cost savings associated for the pharmaceutical companies in having a more rigorous approach to clinical trials. And we've been very fortunate to work with a large clinical trials contract research organization that is doing trials in oncology and diabetes and hypertension. And the platform really has demonstrated that it has very broad applications in that segment. In the other segments like HIV and hospice care, I think, again, it all just speaks to the flexibility of the platform, the way that it can really work for clinicians in quite a broad range of applications. And that's very good for us because it means, we have a very large total addressable market of over 57 million patients. And we're developing new opportunities all the time. And the advantage of, to clinicians is our platform is so flexible that when new billing codes are introduced, we can within weeks deploy a new module that will allow them to leverage those billing codes and provide those new services. That's a very unique feature of our platform and our company.
Can you share any initial feedback from customers or patients that have been on the iUGO platform for a few months already?
Yeah, so clients love it. They've never worked with a healthcare software before that they actually like. And I think if you talk to your family doctor or any physician in a hospital, they'll tell you they tolerate the electronic medical record systems because they're being forced to, but they hate working with it. Our platform's very user-friendly, so it's really a joy for clinicians to use, and you don't hear them talking about software in those terms generally. So very, very positive feedback. We also get anecdotal feedback from clinicians about things like, I was able to get an alert that one of my patients had their blood pressure drop precipitously. Turned out they doubled up on their blood pressure medication. We were able to bring them in before they had a stroke or passed out and had a bad fall, broke a hip. And so we get a lot of positive feedback from clinicians. From patients, they don't really know that they're using Reliq or iUGO care because we keep it really low tech in the home for the patients because that's the way you get compliance. And these are older, sick patients living in remote and rural communities sometimes and limited internet access. So we connect them to monitoring devices over the cellular network. And the patient really just has to, once a day or twice a day, whatever their doctor has prescribed, the devices will remind them to come collect their vitals, and they don't have to do anything else. They don't even have to know what their vitals are. It's automatically transmitted to our platform, and the clinicians will call them if there's an issue. But the patients really like that they're able to see that when they do engage actively in their own care in the home, that their health improves. They get tighter blood sugar control, or their blood pressure control is better, their breathing is better. They are noticing that they're not getting the flare-ups that require hospitalization. And they really like that if there's an issue, they get a call from the doctor's office saying, we've identified that you're having a congestive heart failure flare-up. We've called in a new diuretic for you. It'll be delivered to your home. You should be fine. But if there's any issues, we'll notice and we'll be able to get in touch with you. So they feel like there's a real safety net there that, makes it possible for them to stay in their own homes and age in place with dignity for much longer and with a much better quality of life. So we get very positive feedback from all of the different stakeholders.
You announced a deal with Cognizant earlier this year. How's that progressing?
It's progressing very well. I mean, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback in the market from larger potential clients who say, that kind of alleviated any concerns we might have had about you being a small company. Having the Cognizant seal of approval is really very significant in healthcare. They're extremely well known, extremely well respected, particularly in healthcare IT. And Cognizant also supports us on care management. So if we have a very large client who wants to deploy very quickly, instead of Reliq having to hire a bunch of care managers very, very quickly, we can leverage Cognizant's care management team, which is already very substantial and nationwide. And so that allows us to approach clients who otherwise wouldn't have felt that we could really address a client of their scale. And then we work with Cognizant. We've submitted several RFPs jointly with them. We were actually the primary responding on the RFP, but they were RFPs that Cognizant identified that they wanted to be able to respond to, that were primarily for remote patient monitoring and virtual care like we enable, but would also involve their care management and their general IT infrastructure. So they do a lot in cybersecurity and interoperability, mobile device management. And so it's been very fruitful that way. We have regular calls with their North American sales team. We do joint selling. We train their team. So, our expectation is that by the end of this year, you'll start to see some of the traction that we're getting through those joint business development efforts. But even in the interim, frankly, I think we wouldn't have gotten Datasoft Logic across the finish line as quickly as we did if we hadn't partnered with Cognizant. I think that really, from the feedback we've gotten from them, that gave them a real comfort level to move forward with us, even though they're a very large organization and we're relatively small. Having that sort of good housekeeping seal of approval from Cognizant and really kind of pulled it across the finish line.
What should investors be on the lookout for in the coming quarters?
I think we've said quite a few times that, the second half of this year is when we're going to start to bring online some of our larger clients. And so you're going to see much more significant growth and acceleration of onboarding and revenue generation in the second half of this calendar year. So that's definitely something to watch for. And certainly watch for news of new clients who might be on a different scale from what we've previously announced. We should, by the end of this year, have our target gross margins of 75%, EBITDA of 45%. So there's a lot of positives coming for the company. And we are looking to uplist to the NASDAQ, as you well know, but we'll wait and see what happens with the market. Obviously, we hadn't, when we made our plans for 2022, hadn't contemplated the economic pullback we're seeing and the chaos in the capital markets. But when the time is right, Reliq will move to the NASDAQ. We're not going to do that prematurely as a kind of financial engineering move just to get a temporary bump in share price. We're going to move when we have the capacity and the news in the pipeline that we'll be able to get onto that exchange and really keep investors there interested and be considered a mature enough company to be legitimately on the NASDAQ. So we are still tentatively looking at the end of 2022, but subject to market conditions that could move into early 2023.
Is there anything else you want to say before we end the discussion?
No, I think this is a very exciting time for Reliq. We certainly had some impact from the Omicron surges at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, but we seem to have that in our rearview mirror. And we are really accelerating with patient onboarding, and we expect to have some very positive developments to share with the market over the next few months. So I think the second half of the year will be very busy, but very exciting for us. And so everyone inside the company is really pleased with where we are right now. And, we're happy that we are sort of, I think, one of the few healthcare companies that's going to be able to really grow over the rest of this year and in subsequent years, and despite everything that's happened in the market. So we're benefiting from a lot of tailwinds, like the increased funding from Medicare and Medicaid, the aging and growing population, and also as a result of the pandemic, the increased acceptance and adoption of virtual care services. So we're in a really good position, and we're really looking forward to the rest of this year.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Really appreciate your time today. Yeah, thank you. Really greatly appreciate your time. To anyone out there that's not already signed up for a one-on-one, again, please send me email at lowensteiner@lythampartners.com, or again, visit www.lythampartners.com/virtual and click the one-on-one meeting request button. We all hope you enjoy the conference. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.